When I was, I must have been in my young teens, a young teenager, and I was in a football match not far from here, and I was halfway through the football match, and somebody shouted that there was something strange going overhead, and I looked, and it looked as if it was an aeroplane without any wings. So I remember thinking, oh, this must have wings. Must be an aeroplane. It was a silver cigar-shaped object with no wings. And I kept looking, thinking, its angle will change and it'll have wings. But the entire football match stopped. Even the referee stopped. The ball, he held the ball, and we carried on looking at this thing passing over. And it went, as it came over, there was no sound from the engine, so we knew it wasn't an aeroplane. And we carried on playing football.
Peak District National Park, which is located largely within the county of Derbyshire in England, is renowned for its spectacular countryside. It is an area that is dotted with picturesque villages, a place where traditional culture is valued by many. Cottages frequently have names. The customs of well dressings and scarecrows during summer carnival are maintained. It is also an area that has become a hotspot for UFO sightings.
Here in Derbyshire, we had quite a big flap in 1994, 1995. Between December 94 and May 1995, we had 52 flying triangle incidents over and around the Derby area. Where you're interviewing me now, we're half a mile from what is a large roundabout on the circular road, which is called the spider roundabout, and during the rush hour, at the peak of the flap, there was a flying triangle hovering over the roundabout, and the traffic was underneath, stationary, some of it, and one driver happened to look up, and there was this huge triangle just hovering over the traffic, studying the traffic.
We've been in the recording studio all day, but we were still totally aware of what, well, I was anyway, because I'd been to work during the day, so I wasn't drunk. But they all saw the same thing, but something we couldn't explain.
Well, I looked out the window and I saw a slow-moving light that was going over the valley, and then I saw a light come on, it was like a ball of light, quite small, and then it just about 30 seconds afterwards went out. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. I suppose what I observed was the fact that it was a small floating light that we first and foremost thought it was a helicopter, and then it didn't seem to be. And that was just, it seemed to be floating around rather than going in any particular direction. It was just meandering, if you know what I mean. And then from the distance, a huge, well, what seemed to be comparatively huge in comparison to the other one, this light came on, and it seemed to beckon the other one toward it. It went in the same direction as the larger light, and then they just both went off, both lights, or disappeared, or whatever. There's no way anything was within the valley area unless it was hovering or flying, because there's nothing there. It's just an open space. But these things were there,
Probably 1959, I was coming from Bonsall over the hill, and right across, as you come down Bonsall Lane, there's a clump of trees right across, and just above the clump of trees was a big, say a foggy circle, a perfect circle, not anything rough. And I stopped, and it was moving slowly to that side. And I watched it for about 10 minutes, and it was moving very slowly all the time. I thought, well, that's not just a cloud, that's something out there ordinary, you know. Anyway, it was Thursday and I was Morris dancing night. Come and tell her, I have just seen a UFO. Oh yes, so they didn't believe me, of course. And the second time was probably 18 months later, and that was at the top of the street. And I was just walking up the street, crossed the road, and I just happened to look up. And right above the Dar house, a tremendous circle, completely white. And there was a lad across the road, Asa, and I said, "Hey up, Asa, what do you reckon to that?" He said, "Oh, I don't know." He says, "Funny that is, it's funny." Anyway, I says, "Don't let it go." I said, "I'm going to fetch me binoculars." So I fetched me binoculars, because I only live round the corner. And it was tremendous, this great big circle above Dower House. But when you got the binoculars on, you got little jimpy edges like that, all dark jimpy edges right round, and in the bottom was like an exhaust from a jet. Let's say the back of an exhaust for a jet, blue and purple, like that. And that's funny. Well, we watched it for quite some time. A big cloud came and more or less covered it over, you know.
Bonsall is one village in Derbyshire particularly known for its UFO sightings. It is also known for its village carnival, its beautiful moor, and pub owner Alan Webster's annual hen races.
1 to final there. Is Speckle. 3 to 1 on break, sorry. So I need to be getting out of the way here. Now there's just one thing before.
This could win.
Good start, very good start there from Alan's hand. That is just take a walk down the track. That is a fine.
I don't know if any of you live around here, but sometimes you see this chicken hovering way up in the sky.
You see a lot of things hovering way up in the sky, you know.
So I hear you guys do UFO walks from this area?
Yeah, 10 years ago, I designed a leaflet. I put a little sign up saying landlord's guided walk, and it was free, and everybody was welcome. So 35 people turned up, and we go over the moor. When we get back, people said, "Oh, we must go again." It's now 3,500 people who've been on these walks in the last 10 years. So the things that we talk about on those walks are many and varied, but during the last 5 years we've introduced things to do with the UFOs and the myths and the legends that that surround this area, to do with the villages, lost areas, and lights in the sky, and where things have been seen. And so people wanted to go and see these things. That was in 2002, and I was shutting the chickens up on my back garden behind the pub. And as I turned to go down, I noticed this thing coming towards me that I thought, in the twilight, because it was late in the evening, summer's evening, I thought it was an airship zooming towards me from the south, heading north, straight towards the pub, straight over here. And it all seemed to happen very quickly, but it decelerated, and I seem to remember it almost stopped overhead here. And it carried on again, it zoomed off, it accelerated away. So it all happened quite quickly. There was no sound. And I remember it as having there seemed to be a light above and a light below, and there seemed to be a circle of lights around the middle. And then I came down to the front of the pub thinking, what, shall I tell anybody or not? Because I'd had all this, people had told me things, and I thought, are they going to believe me when I say, well, I've seen something now? And I thought, I don't know. And then, as I came round the corner, there were people sat here, my son was walking up, rushing up to me saying, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Oh, you all saw it, did you?" And they said, "Yeah, we all saw it, we all sat here, and we saw it." I said, oh, I thought I'd be the only one. So as they're driving out of the village, over the moor at night, and sometimes in the day, that's when they see lights and UFOs right across the moor there.
Alan is one of many who have seen UFOs over the now famous Bonsall Moor.
Where I worked, sometimes I had to work evenings, and I was coming home late one night. It was about 10:20, and it was March, so it was quite dark. And I was coming over, I'd sort of turned left to go over Bonsall Moor, and I started driving over the moor, and soon after I started driving over, I became aware of this very bright light in the sky, very bright silver light. There's no lights on Bonsall Moor, so you have to be quite careful about where you're going. And I kept looking at it, and I was thinking, is it an aeroplane? And I thought, no. You're sort of looking for the flashing lights on an aeroplane and the way it's moving. I got to a point where I was watching it so much that I almost ran myself off the road. So I thought I'll stop the car and have a look. And then I thought, oh, it must be a UFO. And when I first thought it's a UFO, I thought, oh, I was really excited about it. I thought, oh, I've always wanted to see a UFO, and I'd always wanted to see a ghost and things like this, and I never had. And then as I sat there in the dark and in the silence, instead of being excited, I started getting a bit more unsure about it. And little things start going through your mind. Well, what if it is a UFO? What if it's going to land? And I thought, well, what if I just disappear? If I'm abducted and I disappear and nobody knows where I've gone, and I just find my car the next day. And I had this stupid idea that I ought to write a note just in case I was. So I started sort of reaching down to get something from my bag, and then I sort of caught a glimpse of sort of movement, and as I looked up, it had gone. It had just sort of gone really quickly.
Roy Witham is known in his village for upholding Derbyshire traditions and customs. He is a church warden, noted raconteur, former dancer, and longtime caller for the renowned Winster Morris dancers.
I was travelling from west to east from Buxton back to Winster, and it's a long main road which is very straight, and you're travelling on there for about 15 minutes, and in the whole of that time this strange object in the sky over Cromford or Bonsall Moor was visible at all time, and it never moved. It was static in the sky. And this was one evening, early evening. There was still daylight about, and a plane went by it, very close to it, but it just remained there, never moved. It was just a weird shape, like a cigar-shaped thing, just static in the sky. But it remained there the whole of the 15 minutes.
Traditional culture is showcased at local fairs and festivals. UFO lore and any accompanying art forms have yet to become acceptable enough to celebrate publicly in Derbyshire. So far, UFOs remain firmly in the realm of folk belief and storytelling. It is within narratives that connections are found between past beliefs and experiences and those of the present day. This is an area of Derbyshire where some of the old narratives seem to meet the new narratives. Just behind me is Lantern Pike, where Peggy with the Lantern is said to walk on dark nights. Also in this area, people have seen will-o'-the-wisps, or ghost lights, also called foxfire. Lately, however, people in the very same areas are reporting UFOs.
At the time, hundreds of years ago, people could only associate these strange happenings, the appearance of what they called elves and so on, with their knowledge of the period, that these were likely to be witches or something like that. I mean, they had no concept of alien beings, so if they saw anything strange, little green men in the forest, then these were classed as elves or fairies. I think there must be some basis in the folklore of all those years ago of aliens landing and possibly abducting people.
There's certainly seems to be more reported this last 20 years. But you see, if you go back years and years and years, you'll have stories of something moving in the heavens, whether they've put that down to religion or whether there was something there, in the first place. So you don't know. Jesus has ascended into heaven. Now, was he going on a UFO or,
Yeah.
We've been to Derbyshire for the weekend, and we're going home on the Sunday evening. So say it's roughly about 7 o'clock when we're going on Sutton Road into...
And it travelled at the side of us down the highway into Wisbech, a distance of about 10-12 miles.
And a shadow, the sun was still, well, it was summertime, and a shadow sort of came over the car. And it was an open neck job, an open top car. And I looked up and I said to him, "Oh my God, don't crash," but I said, "Look up above us." And he sort of slowed down and looked up and stopped. And he said, "I don't believe it." I said, "We're dreaming, aren't we?" And it was huge, absolutely huge.
It looked like a round disc object, sort of a flattened ball, if you like, and with windows round.
Just huge, and you just looked at it, kept looking at it. It was so huge. I mean, people say flying saucers, don't they? Well, I suppose that's just a description, but it's so huge, it was unbelievable. You're so gobsmacked, and then suddenly you're terrified. And he said, "Oh my God." So he put his foot down to go like mad, and I'm saying, "Be careful of the kids, if we tip over, there's no top on the car, So he went faster and faster and faster, and then as we got towards the first village on Sutton Road, it just went, and it gone. There wasn't a sign of it in the sky. And then you start thinking to yourself, well, I've imagined it,
Many people who haven't been to England frequently perceive the whole country to be synonymous with the urban metropolis of London. However, the hustle and bustle of London is a galaxy away from Derbyshire, which is a 3-hour drive from the city. Perhaps this is one reason for possible UFO visits.
They always seem to go to lonely places. They wouldn't go to a city or doesn't appear to be going to many cities or anything like that. They're always quiet and lonely places.
I think it's possible that we see more of them because the skies are very dark and you are more aware of things in the sky. There are no houses nearby, and you can imagine that you do start feeling frightened that you're completely on your own and nobody to call for help to.
Well, I think they're generally having a good look around to see if the planet is worth landing on before we land on theirs.
I feel they've been visiting the planet for many hundreds of years. They're just watching us as we survey other species of animals, take polar bears and that sort of thing.
There's a lot of magnetic fields in and around that area because we have a lot of old lead mines. There aren't anything, I don't think there are any ley lines in that area, I may be wrong, but it seems to be focused in and around probably the magnetic force from underneath, you know.
We've got this different to everywhere else, is that we've got a great concentration of minerals in the rock. We've got the most intensive lead mining in the world was here.
A multitude of mines dot the Derbyshire countryside. I'm sitting here at Lunter Rocks just above the village of Winster. People have been reporting ghostly lights and apparitions here for many, many years. This area is also dotted with numerous lead mines. Allegedly, burning balls of fire would lead miners to a particularly rich vein of ore. It seems possible, even probable, that some of this folklore of the past is connected to the lore that we have now concerning UFOs and lights in the sky.
Well, we still get reports even today of strange lights. I had one just about 3 weeks ago of a chap who had to get up early, 6 o'clock I think it was, went to his back door. He lives in a country area near here, and he saw a glowing light in between the trees, just I suppose a few hundred yards away. And this was a sort of greenish glowing light that was moving between the trees.
We lived in a new house built on the grounds of Winster Hall. And apparently, we didn't know at the time, we built it over the potting shed where a guy had committed suicide. But we didn't know this at the time. Anyway, the second night we slept there, we had a dog and the dog jumped onto the bed. And I looked up and thought my husband had been out to the bathroom and was at the side of the bed. But then my husband moved at the side of me and I said, "There's a man in the bedroom." He says, "I know, I've seen him." So then he shot up and said, "Bugger off," you know, he would. And he went through the wall. Well, we were both really scared. And you know, when they say your hair stands on end, it's tingling, really. It doesn't stand on end, but it feels as if it is. So this went on night after night after night. Every morning about 5 o'clock, some people who lived down the village could see our house, and they said like a light, misty ball would come out of the house and go across the valley every morning. So
Standing stones have a connection to various folk beliefs and folk narratives, and stone circles liberally dot the Derbyshire countryside. This spot is called the 9 Ladies for the 9 druidic stones that rest here. It is allegedly a hot spot for spiritual and paranormal activity.
A classic one is Stanton Moor, which is 5 miles away. And that's supposed to have more visible history than anywhere else in England, if you know what you're looking at. Now, people regularly go up there and report to the newspaper that they've had strange experiences, gas clouds around them, they've fallen over, they've gone dizzy.
We've got many old traditions going off in Derbyshire these days, so it's just another of them, you know. We've got the druids and stone circles and that sort of thing all around here, and there's reported weird goings on at those sort of places around the stone circles and that.
These days, standing stones are under attack by modern quarries. Perhaps the stress now associated with these sites has become part of the narrative landscape, causing more modern beliefs, like the belief in UFOs, to culminate around the sites. Another important aspect of the UFO experience in Derbyshire is that it must be shared with others. Telling one's UFO narrative seems to provide important psychological functions. Many such stories are thus shared secondhand.
Because of what we've seen, we started the Bonsall International UFO Society, and we meet here regularly. We have a meeting perhaps once a week to discuss the things that are flying about above us.
If you find somebody that has had a similar experience, then it's quite exciting, because you know that they're going to believe you, and you can compare your experience with theirs and try and make sense of it.
Well, maybe you should tell the police if you want to, or do you want to tell a local newspaper? because they'll be interested. And they then say to me, well, they may not believe us. You think they'll believe us? And they'll say, do you believe us? And I say, yeah, I believe you. You know, I can see that you've seen something.
You can certainly see why people are so assured that what they've seen is a UFO. Nature is surrounding you in an area like this. Certainly you can discern between what is natural and what is unnatural.
You always think you do see a few, but when you look at something like that, you just want to check out that is a helicopter.
Yeah, I mean, we are quite rational. And we try to work things out. And pretty sceptical as well as regards UFOs. But having seen these in Derbyshire and also in America, very similar ones, it is sort of making me think a little bit, you know, different.
Do you, first of all, believe in UFOs?
Well, I don't know whether I believe in them or not, but I've seen something rather suspicious in the sky and I don't know what it was.
I think that's due to the fact that they think, hello, another nutter coming up with the idea. But if, when you have seen it in reality, it does make you believe that these things do exist, without a doubt.
Did you see a UFO?
No, I've never seen a UFO, but other people seem to think that they have.
Your husband told me you were together when you saw a UFO.
I have never seen a UFO in my life.
Baker, what did you see then that day?
I can't remember, it's about 50 years ago.
Mary, what did you see?
Nothing.
What? Mary, what did you see when you were with Roy that day?
Roy, what did we see?
You saw that thing over Compton.
It was it was just a light, and it seemed to be with us all the way, and seemed to be a little bit different to the usual aeroplane stuff.
Is it and this is Morris dancing.